What is going on, guys? Dan with Gear Focus here, and it's been a while since we've done a gear review on this channel. So I recently bought the new Canon 14-35 f4, and I've been using it while I've been on the road for the last 3 months. So I've been living in my truck for the last 3 months, traveling around the country, just, hanging out and doing some cool things. And I bought this lens right before I left. So I've had a really good opportunity to use this lens. This is pretty much the only lens that I've used on this trip. So I'm gonna divide this video into two main sections, photo and video. So I'll put the timestamps down in the description down below. So whatever section you're interested in viewing, you can go ahead and just skip to that section. Let's go ahead and start first with the photo side. So this is a wide angle zoom lens. This is an RF mount wide angle zoom lens that, in my opinion, seems to be replacing the 16-35 f4. So with this 14-35, we get an extra 2 millimeters of width, and we get some really good image stabilization in the lens. Now, this lens is an absolute landscape powerhouse. The 14 millimeters is super wide, and it's also really, really sharp edge to edge. Now, we're obviously gonna have some distortion just because it is a super wide angle, but in terms of image sharpness, this lens is as sharp in the center of the lens as it is at the edges. It's really kind of incredible what Canon's been able to do with this lens. Now, the 14 millimeter end is gonna be great for things like landscapes or astrophotography or stuff like that. But if you zoom in on the 35 millimeter end, you can actually get some pretty decent portraits. And because this lens has a really close focusing distance, you can get some pretty decent out of focus subjects in the background, as long as you have your subject close to the lens. Now, I also really like 35 millimeter for like lifestyle stuff or just like general candid shots for, while I'm around camp, or if I'm doing like product shots or something like that, just general overall shots. The 35 millimeter looks really good in my opinion. 35 millimeters, like what your eyes actually see. I know a lot of people say it's 50 millimeters, but I kind of disagree with that. I think 35 millimeter fits a little bit better. But 35 millimeter is great for your lifestyle shots, for your things like your product shots, or people just like hanging out around camp or something like that. But like I said earlier, this lens is insanely sharp. And for a $1,500 lens, I'm super, super impressed with what this lens is able to do. All right, so now let's talk about video with this lens. In my opinion, this is the absolute perfect vlogging lens. The image stabilization on this is great, and now with the new firmware updates that Canon has pushed out, we get rid of some of that wobble that is on the edge. It's not perfect, but it is a lot better. But this image stabilization, particularly on the 14-35, is just really, really good. The 14 millimeter width is also really good, and then if I want to zoom in, all I gotta do is zoom in like that, and you can see that it still looks really, really good. Then I zoom back out. Like I said, this is just a perfect vlogging kind of lens. But also, I think this lens would be great on a gimbal. I mean, personally, I kind of like wide angles on gimbals anyway, but having the super wide 14 millimeter on a gimbal, I feel like you can get some really, really cinematic shots. I haven't been able to test this on my gimbal yet, but when I get home in a few weeks, I will definitely be doing that. I know I keep ranting and raving about the image stabilization on this lens, but it really is just fantastic. It makes shooting handheld really easy as well. Also, something that's really, really cool with this lens is it has almost zero focus breathing. Now, if you're not really into video all that much, focus breathing might not be all that important to you, but for me, having zero or very limited focus breathing is a huge deal. Now, if you don't know what focus breathing is, that's when you pull your focus from your minimum to your maximum, and it actually zooms your lens in and out a little bit. This lens does not do that almost at all. There's a tiny, tiny little bit of it, but for the most part, there is zero focus. Now, if you guys have been around the channel for a while, you know that I'm like absolutely obsessed with the 24-105 f4, but I think now that I've been using this 14-35 f4 for going on 3 months now, pretty much exclusively, I have to say that I'm not going to be using that 24-105 as much. I am really, really impressed with this lens. This lens is going to live in my kit for a really long time, and especially now with the RF mount being adopted by companies like Red, I can see this lens going really, really well with something like a Red Komodo or even a Raptor or something like that. The image sharpness on this lens is just going to do really, really well with those high resolution cameras. So let me know down in those comments down below whether or not this is a lens that you might think about getting yourself. I know we have a couple listed over on gearfocus.com, so I'll make sure to put those down in the description down below. I know that there's a lot of other different wide-angle zooms, so if you guys are using something different, let me know what that is down in the comments as well. And while you guys are down there, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure you hit that bell to be notified. We are going to be having a lot more content come out soon, so make sure you guys are subscribed with that bell notification so that you make sure that you see all the videos that we're coming out with. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, Gear Focus is always here to help you feed your passion.